Welcome to Oldsmobile 455 again. We got the new acquisition, 73 Pontiac Trans Am, and while we got it apart, fixing up the rear main seal leak, we were thinking about taking it apart, checking the condition of the engine, and it's got heads that are smaller combustion chamber, so a lot of times guys would do a valve job and all of a sudden it's huffing more oil. But we're going to be checking this thing for a compression test and doing a leak down test, seeing how much, he doesn't want to stick too much into it. If it's still tight, then we wouldn't have to buy new pistons and rings or hone it. If it's leaking, it's got 130,000 miles on it, most likely we're going to have to freshen it up. But we want to find out what the condition of the motor is right now. And it's cold outside right now. Well, ideally it would be nice if the engine was warm, it would seal better. So he was thinking of firing it up, getting it up to operating temperature, but if we open up the door and let the exhaust go out the tubes, cold air is going to come in, so we're going to be freezing our butt off. If you'll notice, the air conditioning is not on, and every once in a while it's kicking on. We're going to find out something's shorted out here to get it so that doesn't come on. So for as old as this thing is, and it's cold out right now, she fired right up, and there's no ticking in the valve train, no rattling noises anywhere. It sounds pretty nice. A lot of times you hear an old engine, your belts are squeaking, alternators whining. There's none of that weird noises. So whenever you're trying to do a compression test, you want to give each cylinder the same amount of air. And the only way you can let air into the engine is you got to make sure the throttle blades are open. We got a tie wrap holding it wide open, the choke, got a screwdriver so air can get in. And you do the same amount of rotations on each cylinder. We're going to go 3 times. So you'll hear it as the rest of the spark plugs are out and it's going, and then when it hits the one that's on compression, you'll hear it going, it changes the noise. You'll notice it. We'll let it 3 times do that, and then we'll take the readings, write them down, and then compare the cylinders. We took the spark plugs out very easily because they weren't even tight. And then you can notice the difference. Some of these are riding nice, but then there's a couple that are, looks like they're running rich. After we end up getting fresh wires, spark plugs, and carb rebuilt, it should run a lot cleaner. But then after you get it running, then you always check this to see if, well, this one had oil dripping down from the valve cover. That's on the outside. But you're going to be looking for there. It's not wet like gas is dumping in it, and it's not dripping oil like it's not firing and just having like a hole in the piston and oil gushing in it. But you can see it's black, that means unburned fuel.
That's it. Is that 3?
Yep. So what you'll notice about 1973 is they had really annoying buzzers that went off when you opened the door or left the keys in it. Later on, people disliked that so much that they disconnected buzzers and stuff. I know I did under the dash. And they came out with little chimes that go bling, 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 bling. It's not making a The buzzer is just a little yellow plastic thing that you can go underneath the dash and you can unplug it and get rid of it. When you do that, right after you take that buzzer out, one day you're going to have the locks on and the keys are going to be in it. You close the door and all of a sudden, son of a gun, I forgot my keys in the car. So A lot of guys put the buzzer back in to remind them, because trying to get into the car with one of them Slim Jims or a coat hanger, you hack up the seals where the window is. It just makes them mad. Well, you can see where everything is really close. You got 135, which must be the maximum you could probably get. And you got 130 in a couple places. Could be a little leakage, different chamber size, you don't know. We're gonna try one cylinder with oil, and if there's no increase in the... These are really difficult to get at, because this is probably a reason why a lot of guys just got rid of the air conditioning pump. Once it started to go bad, they probably thought, screw it, I'm not gonna waste to fix it up. Plus you're dumping a whole bunch of weight, and getting at that spark plug is really a job. We couldn't get at it until we took the dipstick tube out, and then he was able to get the tool in there and get the tester on it. But on the driver's side, it's a lot easier. So we're gonna just squirt a little bit of oil in there. If things really jumped up, you know, like if it went from 135 all the way up to 155, then you'd know you'd have some problems with the rings. But if it just stays at 135 and the rest of them are 135 already, then we're not gonna chase every one squirting oil in it and doing another compression test with oil. That would determine if your rings are bad. If you have lower compression and you're checking with oil and it increases, you know your rings are bad. But then, like if we take a test and you got it up to top dead center and both your valves should be closed and you blow air in there, then we could hear if air is coming up through the carburetor, or you could hear it going out the exhaust. But we're gonna be putting improved heads on it anyway, so we're not really concerned about the valve job right now. But everything, you know, it runs so nice, and this is so even. I'm thinking that somebody must have gone through this at one time. We don't have any motor oil. Usually you should use motor oil because it'll seal better. This is kind of like water. But I'll give it a squirt in there, and then you always want to hang on to this tube also whenever you're doing this. You don't want to go psh, and all of a sudden the tube's down the cylinder. That would be a drag. And you gotta have a good full can, or else, you know, you gotta tilt the can in order to get any juice in there. I'm stuck up on the thread or something. I'm not getting, it's a big enough spark plug hole, but it doesn't want to, unless I'm hitting the top of the piston. Yeah, this must be at top dead center. So it went up to, yeah, 130, no increase. It was 130 originally. We squirted some oil in there. There was no improvement. So you can say that the rings aren't bad. And the fluctuation, if the other ones are 135, maybe the valves might be leaking a little on those other cylinders. And we could try that air test where you bring them up to top dead center and blow in there and we'll listen. So this is the compression tester, and it's nice because you can pop it off. There is a little compression release on that, but we have that off now. I'm going to hold my thumb over this. He's going to roll the engine over until it comes to top dead center, and it's going to go, psh, you know, pull my finger off, and then we're going to hitch air up to it and see if we can hear any leakage anywhere. Okay, that's it. So we had to make a little fitting that's male to male, because both of these are female fittings. And you can see I got 120. I can pull it off, it's right back up to 120. We waited for the air compressor to shut down. Hopefully these don't leak. And then we got it up on top dead center. Hopefully this doesn't leak down there. I'm connecting it. We know we got 120 pounds of pressure. That's pretty strong. It's tight. What I got here is a mechanic stethoscope. It's really sensitive, so when you got it in your ear, you don't want to bang it against anything, but to my ear, I can't even hear anything because we got a furnace running. It's like a pump noise, And I'm just gonna listen for any kind of hissing. Nothing. Nothing. So the valves must be good. A lot of times when guys will blow a head gasket, they just, if you're seeing steam coming out of your exhaust, you know a head gasket's bad. If you check your oil and you got a malted milk shake in your oil pan, that's oil and water mixing. But sometimes you don't have either one. And you're wondering what's happening. And you can take the radiator cap off, and if you see air bubbles coming up, then the compression is blowing into a coolant area, and you're actually getting air into the radiator. You can see bubbles coming up through your radiator. So when you compare a brand new spark plug to a used one, usually the center electrode is perfectly cylindrical and flat on top. And you gotta realize this thing's sparking across here all the time. Sometimes as the corners round off, there's metal that's going away, okay? And that can happen faster if you've got pre-ignition going on. And that's why a fresh set of plugs with sharp corners spark easier. The more rounded it gets, the harder it is for a spark to jump the gap. So we're seeing it. These plugs might have been in here for a while because it doesn't look like they're brand new. Everything is loose on this thing. You go to take something apart and you don't even have to try to crank on everything. It's like whoever put it together had a limp wrist. Checking the distributor, and it wasn't even locked down tight. So we don't know what we were driving that 2,000 miles across the hot desert, you know, with, you know, if just every time you gas it, sometimes your distributor can move just from the torque. And we might have been, you know, excessive, you know, advance on the timing. We would have heard pinging and popping back through the carburetor, so it couldn't have been too far off. So I don't know which direction the distributor turns and what would happen from acceleration and a loose hold down. I don't know if it would be advanced. Most likely it would go into a retard situation. But if it was going too much advance, then you'd go to start it, and it would be really hard. It'd be like, rrr, rrr, rrr. And then when there's, you know, retard, then it turns easier. It's like, you know, and cranks faster. But anytime you have too much advance, then you'll know. That's a way of tuning. You want to get as much advance as you can on idle when the engine's hot. Because nothing worse than like having the thing die on you in traffic and all of a sudden your starter's too weak because it's gotten so hot from being in traffic, and the motor can't even, the starter motor can't even turn over the engine. Then it's time to back off on the timing. We're gonna be taking this hood off, we're gonna be pulling the motor out, we're gonna be fixing that rear main seal. So today we were just checking the condition of the engine before, you know, if you're gonna have it out, you might as well re-ring it or whatever. We don't need to even do that. All we gotta do is take the oil pan off, loosen up the crank. But we gotta get the saddles loose. We're gonna put a different seal in the back than the stock seal, and hopefully we can correct the leak. He just hates oil leaks. But while that's all out, we're gonna be correcting a lot of stuff, improving the engine bay, and starting from the front of the car and working our way back. All right, till next time, we're out.